Welcome everyone to Witness Underground 17. We have a guest on today, Mitchell Vandenheuvel, who joined me last weekend at Chicago Irish Film Festival. And we were there to represent Debutante, which is a film made by Kamila Dydyna, based in Dublin. She's an ExJW witness. It's a young woman's journey growing up in a family divided by religion. She's interrogated by 3 male elders about her most intimate moments with the highest of stakes. That's Debutante. It's available to stream right now through March 13th. Hopefully you'll get this out so you have some time to watch it. But her film is this beautiful short narrative. It's 18 minutes long. That film is amazing, perfectly well cast. The actors are spot on. It's creepily accurate, and they have no connection to the religion in any way. The entire cast is not related to the religion, the entire crew as well. They made this beautiful film.
You promised me a story.
The purpose of this meeting is to establish the facts and, if possible, to help you rebuild your relationship with Jehovah God.
Then Joshua said to Achan, "Tell me what you have done. Do not hide it from me."
We went there to represent it. It got into the Chicago Irish Film Festival. I got on a radio program, so we'll talk a little bit about that. And we met a lot of other filmmakers there, and hopefully we'll get a chance to talk about some of their films. More importantly, we want to talk about the film, how the Q&A went, and what were some of the questions that were raised during the Q&A. The Q&A was really special, and it kind of became a discussion with the entire audience and with Mitchell and I, fielding a lot of questions. That's what we're going to get into. Why don't you introduce yourself with your name and like a little bit of background?
My name is Mitchell. I'm in Wisconsin. I am a ex-Jehovah's Witness. My parents were Jehovah's Witnesses. I got out, and here I am.
That's all you got. That's it right there.
I mean, I got a lot. Like okay. You said an intro. You want to go for an entire hour?
I do appreciate it.
So when I was 6.
yeah. Introductions. I'm Ryan Sutter. I am also descended from witness parents. I am one of the subjects of Scott's film Witness Underground and the weekly co-host of this podcast, so you probably know who I am already if you've listened to or watched this.
Filming, I directed Witness Underground. Here is the painting of the poster of the film,
which is a creepy picture of me when I was 17, but standing on a guitar neck.
I think to complete this whole thing, you have to paint a picture of me now and put it in your background.
You know what? Challenge accepted. I'll get on that.
And then we're all going to get tattoos, we decided in the last podcast, of this symbol on our bodies to represent not only Nuclear Gopher, Ryan is the founder of Nuclear Gopher, a Jehovah's Witness music production company, but it's also
formerly a Jehovah's Witness music production company.
That's true. Good clarification. But also it's becoming for us the symbol of the underground movement of activism, in the ExJW's witness community.
Well, the slogan was underground and radiating. I think it still qualifies.
Yeah.
Mitchell, Scott,
Yes,
movie, Debutante, thoughts?
I watched it for the first time in the hotel room because I was by myself. Scott gave me a link to it. I started it, and about 1 minute in, possibly or probably the biggest fear I've ever had in my entire life, besides like my, children actually dying or something horrible happening to them, is addressed in the film. So I'm instantly washed with emotion. Probably maybe good no one was there. I don't know. Definitely good. I watched it before. We were just at the screening. Very simple way to put the point across it that I believe she may have been trying to be making. But anyway, it spoke to me a lot right there. And then as it goes through,
why don't you describe the opening scene?
All right. So the character that's most like me in the film, I guess, a man is walking up to two people preaching at a cart, and one of them is his daughter. She barely acknowledges him other than to tell him to go away. Though you can see the actor, amazing acting. there aren't really lines that portray it, but you can see the pain in her face, much like in the acting, much more than in the dialogue. You can tell that it's not like she didn't want to be saying that to him. And then his reaction as well, very powerful. I spent so much time calculating how I would get out based on a hypothetical scenario like that, or avoiding a hypothetical scenario like that, and like how I taught my kids and everything. Like I was so afraid, and then eventually I just realized like it would be most likely to happen if I waited. Like the younger they are, the longer I have to teach them what I believe and to connect with them on a real level where they know I'm not hiding anything from them.
Question, Mitchell. You say the character you most associated with, was it her or him?
The father.
The father, really?
I was very afraid that hypothetically my kids would grow up, stay in, and shun me. I mean, he's barely in the film, but like that's
no, that
because
makes all the sense in the world.
Everything else was super powerful, but just because that was the thing that scared me the most. I mean, I've been in elders meetings, but I just lied. Like I wasn't, as a man or even as a boy, I couldn't experience that power dynamic in the same way. I was definitely in ones that made me feel very weird, like as a 14-year-old, just like being asked these crazy questions. And it was like about a movie I watched. Like it wasn't even actually doing anything. It was like getting caught watching something where someone may have done something in the movie,
in fiction.
Yeah, exactly. Like so I can't even begin to imagine it. Like I just lied my way out of getting into that same scenario multiple times, because I didn't, even as a teenager, I didn't believe enough to like self-preservation was way more important to me than like whatever relationship with some fake thing or some idea my parents had. That's how I felt about it, even though I also like would carry guilt about it later. In those situations, very like about self-preservation. So in this film, Meg handles it in a very different way, which I know most of the people I knew did handle it, came into it and tried to be honest. And because I was in similar situations and did not take that same path, the thing that was the most, resonates the most with me is those small interactions with her father. And when she like pulls the picture out and unfolds it, and like from a selfish point of view, I would have loved to see her hugging her father at the end or something, but I acknowledge that would not be realistic in most situations.
I had to ask a clarifying question because I was on the other side of resonating with that scene, because my mother left the witnesses a long time before I did. And I was in very much the same position that Meg is in that film, where I was the shunner. I was the one with the family member who wouldn't, who I wouldn't speak to. And so having been in that position, I strongly empathized with the awkward, horrible, disgusting feeling of knowing that you have to treat somebody that you love badly because they are no longer in Jehovah's good standing. And it's very interesting to me that, like, dependent on where you are in your life and dependent on your family situation, that you would either feel resonant with the father or you would feel resonant with the daughter. I think that's very situational, but it's kind of interesting because I literally was like, when you first said, the person you first resonated with, I was like, well, obviously Meg. And then you described the scene and I was like, actually, I'm not sure which person in the scene. I will say, as somebody who's been on both sides, it feels like crap no matter which side you're on. I mean, being the person who's being
Absolutely.
or being the person doing the shunning feels like shit.
Yeah.
Brings up a good question. So what I want to get into at some point here is the Q&A and some of the points that were brought up by audience members that have no connection to this religion at all. One of them brought up, let's jump into one, because you have this relationship with your mother and you shunned her. She left the religion long before you did. One of the ideas was, well, maybe when this main character, maybe if she gets if she's out of the religion, she'll just go straight back to her dad and they'll rekindle their relationship. It'll be amazing. Like, how long did it take for you in your real life once you were out of the religion for your own reasons before you connected with your mom, and what was that? How'd that go?
That's a really complex answer. When I left the Watchtower Society, one of the first things I tried to do was reconnect with my mom, because she had left about 6 years earlier, and I had sort of led the family response in circling the wagons against her. My sister was living with me at the time, and I remember my sister still had a visitation situation with mom, Robbie, and I remember her going to go see our mother and coming back home and having her head filled with apostate ideas. My mom had gone and visited a sister of hers who was an apostate, and I called my mom, and I was like super defending the truth and just sort of fighting on behalf and being like, how dare you do that to Robbie and all that. So I had sort of put this real stake in the ground, you know, that and I was in the middle of getting a divorce myself from my son's mom, who had left the witnesses. So I was really just sort of circling the wagons, you know, and being like, we can't allow this. And then I had to reverse course 100%, because suddenly I was also persona non grata. I was an ex-witness, and I just remembered I loved my mom. You know, that was the only thing that mattered at that point. So I reached out to her, and I mean, my personal change of heart on it was instantaneous. There was no question of, oh, she was a bad witness, she was disfellowshipped, I should still judge her. Like the minute I was out, she was in. It was never a question. But
Her response, like if you did the circling the wagons thing, she might have resented you.
I would have thought she might, and I was worried about it. And she didn't. She didn't. She was just glad to have one of her kids back. I mean, she had lost all of her kids, so now she had one. So for a little while, that went pretty well, and as well as it could. You know, it helped that even when she was disfellowshipped, I actually put her up in my house for a little while, because she didn't have anywhere else to go. She had a daughter, my stepsister Jasmine, or half sister Jasmine, who's she's my sister. What am I saying? Different dads, but she's awesome. And she was born at my house, or not at my house, but she was born at the hospital and came straight home to my house because my mom was staying there at the time. So I did do, even when my mom was disfellowshipped, I tried to provide her with what I felt was family, like what required of me as a family member. But I did shun her. It's weird to say like, oh, I let her stay at my house, but I also shunned her. But it's true. That's what I did. It was weird. It was like when she came and said, can I stay at your house? I said grudgingly, well, you're my mom and you're pregnant and you're leaving your husband. So sure, I'll let you stay at my house, but only if you get back to going to meetings and all that, right? So we had a weird history, my mom and I. And it was really triggered by the movie, honestly. When we watched the movie, I was just like, the whole relationship with your disfellowship parent thing is really complicated. And I've like been the witness who's got the disfellowship parent, and I've been the disfellowship kid or disassociated kid who has the witness parent. So I've kind of been on both sides of it, and it's awful on both sides. But yeah, I was able to reconnect with my mom pretty well and pretty easily for a few years before some other things got in the way that I don't really want to go into. But yeah, the movie was very triggering, I gotta say. I mean, kudos to the incredibly talented director. Good job. You triggered the shit out of me, you know.
Well, so she asked me, which is a huge honor, to go represent the film, and it was in the shorts block, and I was prepared after every single film to like, I want to do a few little recordings of the intro of the film. And it was the very final film. And then we had to go walk up in front of the audience and say some words. And I always get really nervous about that. Nervous is an understatement. I get like full on panic attacks, as you may have witnessed in multiple cities now.
Does not show. It's not clear that you're having a panic attack.
You handled it pretty well.
After looking
Very
back
well.
at it, it's kind of crazy. I appreciate that. I wouldn't have believed either of you if I had not just rewatched the Q&A because I had my friend film it. I think
You
it was
telling me
okay.
about how you thought it went and the way I saw it go were very different. So
Okay. But for me, the very final scene was really triggering. So we're all triggered for very different reasons. Mine was relating to the main character at the end. And I don't want to, this could be a spoil, I guess, but she basically like exhibits her anger at the initiation of shunning by someone she really cares about. And she yells, she screams in anger. And the very last time I saw my dad, I confronted him right after making Witness Underground. I was like a month later. Made my rounds around seeing old friends in Wisconsin, stay with some friends, and kind of tried to like decompress from the whole experience. And then I was like, well, I gotta go see family. And I just made the drive out there. And the last thing that happened between us was he told me to leave the property and I wasn't welcome there. And as he's walking away from me, I felt that it was like, it's gonna be the last thing. And we were having a chat and it was mostly civil, but I yelled out in anger because it was like being re-shunned, just the rejection is like as thick as water. It's like so heavy. And I yelled out, your desire for the new system is fucking selfish. And I yelled that because he was like 100 yards away at that point as he's opening the door to the house. And I learned later from my sister, because I also went and saw her, that he was crying as he entered the house and went down to the basement where they were hiding from the apostate. I was like, I didn't even try to go in the house. But anyway, just to give some context. But like seeing the main character yell like that, it's like very reasonable reaction to everyone in her life, like now cutting her off for possibly till she dies, and she's a teenager. It's like, okay, for the next 50 years until my parents die, I won't have them in my life. And this person I thought I loved, whatever. So that hit me. And then they're like, okay, let's bring our filmmakers up. And I was like, just so emotional. And then, of course, the very lovely director of the festival, Jude Blackburn, looks at all the three other filmmakers on the stage, and she's like, and Scott, why don't you start us off and tell us what this film is about and why it was made? And I was just like, oh man, okay. Get it together. How do I say this? and I struggled to say something, but I was a little bit short from my perspective. If I was Kamila and there to present my film for the first time, I probably would have done something very different. Or if it was, this is a very personal film, or I could have said a bunch of like well thought out things, and I just sort of quickly answered the questions and it moved on to the other filmmakers, which is fine because it did circle back to us and we got to have a really great discussion. But yeah, in terms of having that film affect me, like it's so well done. Actors are doing a killer job of portraying this culture that they probably know nothing about before acting in this film, which just says a lot about their skills and also the director's skills about knowing what she wanted to get from people who've never experienced anything like this.
Honestly, I gotta say that is one of the most impressive things about the film.
Yeah.
Is when I watched that movie, the idea that the individual, pardon me, I have some hiccups. The individuals who were portraying the elders had not previously ever been involved with witnesses is kind of startling.
Yeah.
I mean, the vibe is so accurate that it's like, I assumed the movie was made by people who had been witnesses or been involved as witnesses, and that is a testament to her ability as a director that she was able to get that out there.
Yeah, that was brought up by at least one person in the Q&A as well, or maybe talking after, but I believe during the Q&A, like asking whether or not they were witnesses because they were just like such a believable depiction of them by people who weren't witnesses, but like everyone has kind of seen them, you know. Like I feel like down to the Sam's like ill-fitting suit. That's a costume choice, I'm assuming. Like that suit is like any witness kid, well, he's probably gonna like grow into it or whatever. Like it's just how it is at that age.
The thing is if you've lived in a culture, your bullshit detector about representations of that culture is pretty good. I've seen witnesses represented in fictional portrayals in many different times and places, and if they get any detail wrong, it immediately just goes, yeah, no, they don't know.
The
They'll
language or
say,
word they would never use or something.
right,
Like come to church with me. It's like, oh, they wouldn't use that word.
right, or they're
Not
wearing
true.
a cross,
Right.
or who knows. Like it doesn't really matter. But it wasn't until seeing the film and going, well, shit, that's almost too close to feeling real, right? I gave it a little thought, and I thought about the fact that, like, it's rare to see a fictional portrayal of the witnesses that actually gets it right, that actually gets all the nuance and all the subtlety and doesn't trigger a bullshit detector. And you're like, yeah, no, those could be elders. That's exactly right. This movie does that. And that was very impressive to me, because I think the subtleties, and you brought up like the size of the suit the guy's wearing, right? Like there's just so many things they have to feel right, to feel witnessy, and that movie does. It's very impressive to me.
It's the closest thing I would say would be Apostasy, which is a British film that came out in 2018. Also screened at the Wisconsin Film Festival. That film is really well done, and it kind of handles some of the similar things, like a mom, like a single mom with two daughters, and one of them is dating or has a kid or something. I can't remember exactly it's been a while. It's been 4 years since I watched it, but that one's really good and really kind of hits it really well in terms of, they even have like, they find a building that looks like a kingdom hall, and they do all the signage, and like the whole way that the meeting is conducted and how people act around each other is really well done. He's a former witness, the director. And then also Confessions of a Teenage Jesus Jerk, which is directed by a soap opera director. I can't remember his name at the moment. It was a novel written by Tony Duchesne, and it's a 1980s portrayal of Jehovah's Witnesses in San Francisco, where he's from. And there's a lot of elements to it that there's just so much going on to build the world of the witness culture that I think he doesn't, they as a writer and as him working directly closely with the director and all the actors, like he sent them to go to Kingdom Halls and like get to know the culture as well as they could before they acted. And all the actors are really young. I actually just met one a couple weeks ago. She's the singer of a band. Lauren Lacus plays like the worldly cousin of the main actor. So she came in through town, and I was at the show, and I was like writing when I was talking to Lauren, and then I was writing Tony Duchesne. I was like, I'm hanging out with the actress, and where are you? She says like, where the fuck is Tony? And so like we were chatting a little bit. It was pretty fun. But those two films are amazing, and I feel like Debutante is exactly right up there with like incredibly well acted, well directed, perfect portrayals of the culture.
Honestly, might be the best one I've ever seen.
I don't know if it's appropriate or not, but I want to like, it really triggered something in me. It like reminded me of something my dad had told me, who is one of those elders who has to do that. I'd kind of forgotten all about it, but he's been in that situation, I guess. I don't know. And like when I was definitely openly questioning, or I don't know what year it was exactly, but one time we were just like, I remember it very clearly. We were in a car driving, which is the two of us. And I don't remember how it came up, but he told me that he had never voted to disfellowship anyone, and that he never would. With maybe the caveat of like some extreme, like sexual assault, or you know what I mean, something crazy. In the situations like Meg's or any like 99.99% of things they deal with, that he said he just couldn't, he didn't have it in him.
Wow.
I always admired that about him, I guess. You know, like because I didn't believe in it anyway. So, and still now, and I don't believe in it, obviously, and I do admire that compassion, and I hope that he has stuck to that. But right after I watched it, I decided to like craft a really specific text to him. And I haven't spoken to him. I have spoken to him within the last 5 years, but not really. Like I ran into him at like a my grandpa's funeral, basically, but not like a whatever. We've barely spoken in a long time. So I like was really specific to give him a text that was like very kind, in my opinion. Like it was just like, I admire this about you. I remember this conversation, thinking about you. I love you. Like that compassion. Like I try to like keep that in my life.
He might
It
get in
inspired me to
trouble.
text my dad.
That's amazing.
He
Well, also, it never
didn't
occurred to
respond.
me. It never until you just said it right now, man. I never thought about the idea that, and my dad's an elder too. People in that position might take a moral stance and say, yeah, I you know, what they tell you, right, is that they
I
hear
mean, his
you.
is secret. I mean,
Hey,
like
say-
honestly, he could get in trouble if someone did watch this, just from like everybody talked to asked about it. Like, would you really never do it? Like,
No, that's crazy, right? But like, it also shows that they don't uniquely look at your one thing and then pray and then God tells them the answer. Like they're bringing their perspective in and they're saying, that's not right. I believe this, I believe that, which also would argue then that an individual could get different justice depending on what congregation they're in, depending on the feelings or the background or the individual thoughts and feelings of their elder's body.
people mostly decided
not
before they
supposed to
walked
think
into the
about.
meeting.
Yeah. It's actually that
These
is
are
a
not
whole thing
non-biased.
I've never thought about that.
Like, why don't they take it and put it in a different congregation? Why don't
Yeah.
you go like, why don't we get 3 elders from Minnesota to come to Wisconsin to be like, who don't know these people, you know, like an actual court would do. If you like, you have to have
Unbiased jury.
change of can you request a change of
Never heard
venue?
of that.
You know what this makes me
Like
think
you
of?
can do it in court, you know, you can request like a change of a venue, like a different city.
You'll
'cause you can't get a bias.
you'll appreciate this. When I was 17 and I lost my virginity to my future wife, we
Nice.
both turned ourselves into the elders. She went to her congregation, I went to mine. I was publicly reproved and she was privately reproved. So everybody in my congregation knew I did something wrong, but nobody in her congregation knew she did something wrong. We did the same wrong thing the same number of times, right? Like it wasn't there wasn't a variable there.
Yeah, but that's all about how repentant you are.
Well, but we
It's all about thought crime. It has nothing to do with what you actually did.
I know, it's crazy. We both turned ourselves in
How
on
you
the
thought
same
about it.
day. We both felt equally guilty. Our elders' bodies made different calls. No, but like seriously, like how fucked up is that, man?
Yeah.
Like the two of us decided to lose our virginities to each other at the same time, at the same place, in the same way, on Tom and Cheryl Terry's couch. I was house sitting.
Nice.
There was a fire in the
The
fireplace.
boss.
We had been talking about it for like
Okay.
2 months, and there was nobody who was going to catch
Wait.
us.
Oh, you were like premeditating.
planned
this.
You should have been
uh,
disfellowship for that shit. Premeditated
Fuck yeah,
sex.
we were passing the notes at the Kingdom Hall. We were passing notes at the Kingdom Hall about
Oh, wow.
losing our virginity to each
Oh
other.
hell yeah!
dangerous place to plan something. You can plan that in any other place on earth. It's safer.
I was
It makes
16.
it hotter though.
I was 16 and she was 18.
Ooh,
Yeah,
dangerous line.
she lived on her own. I lived with my parents. And then I
why
was
didn't you
like,
just do it at her house?
well, she had a roommate
Oh, okay.
who I was actually more attracted to.
Oh,
Yeah.
we're getting into a weird space now.
No, well, I was after the roommate, and then I wound up with with my wife.
Classic.
Anyways, long story short, we're sitting there like planning this, and then I'm like, hey, I'm house sitting for these people's dogs for the weekend. And
Like hot.
yeah, so it's not like
Like
either
dogs,
of us,
right, baby?
this was premeditated. This was planned by both of us, and it had been led up to by about like a year.
Did you both feel bad about it, or
Yes,
did
we
one of
talked
you
about
like
it.
pressure the one more? Like, we better go tell on it.
Well,
ourselves?
you know, to be completely honest, So we did the thing the first night. She came back the next morning. We did it again. And then we met up. Then I stopped house sitting and I went back home, and she came over and we like hung out in the apple tree in the backyard and we talked about it. And we're like, we probably shouldn't have had sex either time. We should do something about this. We should go to the elders.
Reduce the severity of the evil sex that you had down to just one time for the story. Did you like corroborate stories, or do you like let it just be truthful?
No, we both told the truth. We said we
Okay.
did it twice. We did it at night. We did it again in the morning.
But are you sure she told the truth?
That's a good point.
Let's play the elders right now, Mitchell. Where did he touch you?
How repulsive was
it? Yeah.
Well, you know the kazoo video in the movie where I'm sitting
The
down
practice
there
room?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was probably not the night, but it could have been the night that I confessed, because during the recording session, one of the recording sessions we had at the Astleford home, I went up and spoke to Chad's dad, who was an elder at my congregation. And I said, Brother Astleford, I have to tell you this. And I confessed everything right off the bat.
There.
Mm-hmm.
During a practice session when all your friends were in the building.
Mm-hmm. They were all down in the basement.
Trying to jam.
I mean, I didn't know when else. We were working on recording the album, and I didn't know what else to do. So I was like, I got to pick an elder to confess to. And Terry Astleford is the one I find least intimidating, and also one who is not my father, and also one who I am in his house sometimes because I'm recording an album with his son. And
he gets me.
So yeah.
Yeah.
So I told Terry Astleford. The thing I never got was like, why? And like everybody in my congregation was like, ooh, Ryan did something. He's publicly reproved. Nobody in Tabitha's congregation had any fucking clue. So people were like, well, Ryan and Tabitha seem like they're dating. Why did he get, but she didn't?
He must have done
Maybe
some
it was
extra
somebody
things.
else.
Right.
And it was like,
or you just like smoked a cigarette?
yeah, I did something. And then she married me anyhow.
I inhaled it.
This is the dumb thing. It's like we fucked like twice, and then we didn't touch each other for fucking a year, and then we got married, and then we got divorced. What a love story.
What I was going to say
True
before
love.
was like, what a strange type of confession that witnesses have. When Catholics, you're like, oh, I feel bad, I feel guilt. So I'm gonna go tell the person who's basically like a quasi therapist who like takes on the weight of the congregation or the community, and is like, all right, like just pray about it 17 times, and then you're probably fine. And witnesses are like, you're like, which elder hates me the least, and do I feel the most comfortable with, or like you have no idea which group of them are going to be assigned to you, but you like go to the one who you like the most or something, or have a rapport with. And then it's this like multi-week traumatizing situation where you don't know what's going to happen. You're nervous about it for a really long time because you might never see your family again, you know, or you might have to spend a year in solitary confinement for like touching someone you have a deep relationship with, or whatever the thing is. And you already feel the guilt about it, and you live with that guilt. Like, isn't that enough punishment enough that like, if you felt compelled on your own to go confess, isn't that enough of punishment? But that not for them. They want to then take on the role of punishing you further and more deeply for a really long time, to the point that it like causes divisions in families and friends, and like people that come back from that are not the same. They're broken in some way. The few people I knew who got back were just like,
also it also just teaches us to lie. That's what it did for me. I was a little kid and just learned to lie really well, because why would I jeopardize everything?
watching a movie that you're not supposed to.
Yeah, exactly. You're like, and then you realize everyone's lying in certain ways. Like, we're not, maybe I did it about bigger things. Like sometimes, yeah, people get, start feeling bad and they decide to go and confess something, but like half the time, or probably 98% of the time, they're like still not exactly like, we're not like, giving them every sin I ever committed right now. Like, you hear every time I watch fucking pornography and masturbated or like, like no, I'm definitely getting disfellowshipped, like lay it all out. I'm just gonna like give them a little bit.
Yeah.
That's so fucking true. Like, I've been in 2 judicial committees in my life.
It's like in the movie.
The first one was obviously what we just talked about. Second one, there was a girl I dated briefly. She got drunk one night, and I was a little bit drunk, but not as drunk as she was. I left the room. I came back. She was naked. We started having sex. Then I felt guilty, and we stopped. I felt like I did the right thing. So I stopped the whole thing. Drove her home, put her clothes on, did the whole thing. Yeah, was I perfect? No. But I didn't want to go to the elders over it. She did. So she went to the elders, and the elders dragged me in, and they said, did this happen? I was like, do I say yes and destroy my life for the next 2 or 3 years, or do I just deny it because they need the word of 2 witnesses? And I was like, nope. Didn't happen. I felt really guilty about it for like 6 months.
The risk there, and the thing that I teach is that if you lie about it, and then because the end of the world is coming really soon, that Jesus will murder you himself.
I think it was one of my first clues that I wasn't actually fully believing it anymore, because this was just like, she decided to go to the elders several years after this happened, but just before I left. And she
It was
actually
just years later.
Oh, it was years later.
There's another weird thing that happens.
felt
My
guilty
ex-wife
about
wanted to
it.
go to the elders like 5 years after we were married, and I was like, well, if they ask all these questions and you want me to be honest, I'm going to be disfellowshipped forever, because I'm going to be honest, and then I'm going to tell them I don't repent because I don't think it was a sin.
Well, that's just it. Like, it's exactly it. She went years later. She told the elders. I don't know why she felt she needed to do that. I flat out was like, yeah, no, that's not what happened. I didn't tell them what happened. I just didn't cooperate. And they're just like, nope. What? I don't know. She was super drunk, which is all true. But the important part is that she called me after I did leave the witnesses, after I stopped being a witness. She actually called me. She's one of the few witnesses who ever did. And she called me and she's like, I feel like the fact that you weren't honest with the elders injured your relationship with Jehovah, and that's why you're not being a witness anymore. I was like, nope, that really had nothing whatsoever
Kind of the opposite
to do with it. I'm like, I appreciate your vanity in this scenario, that somehow my decision to leave the witnesses had something to do with me and you, years and years ago. But no.
I mean, naked woman's bodies had a lot to do with me leaving, but
I do appreciate. Anyway,
Yeah.
so podcast.
Okay, there's a few things I guess
So,
we could
did you get
jump
any of
into.
Have you been recording any of this?
Yeah, we're gonna need to cut out most of that. Remember, this is a film from a woman's perspective.
3 men discussing a film about a woman's perspective. We represent. One of the questions that came up.
I can wake Amelie up to get back on track.
A few of the things that were brought up. Well, one person said, this is a Jehovah's Witness couple from Chicago who came up to the Wisconsin Film Festival for our film. They also showed up for the Chicago one because they live there. This scenario in Debutante feels like a little tiny window into a much bigger story. And we already have the actors, you already have the crew, you already know what the scenario is, and you could imagine what comes before and what comes after, but we could actually tell it as a series or a feature, which I thought was really cool. Like, oh, this seems like a huge thing, or a mini series or something, which I really like that perspective. One of them was, what are the differences in how someone might be treated? And this goes back to what we were just talking about. What's the difference between men and women? Like, how would men be treated differently than women are treated? That was a great question.
I think that was by our friend that we met there, Emma. Am I correct? Did you put that in your notes?
I didn't write down who wrote it, but it may be because I did take.
I don't
some of
know
her
when
notes
you
down.
want to shout people out, but
Shout out to Emma. What's her last name?
shout out to Emma McKenzie.
Mackenzie. She did a film called Outside In. That was a great film related to domestic and emotional abuse and gaslighting in a relationship.
Like kind of how the scars from emotional abuse can't be seen from the outside. Also had a very interesting dynamic in it, where they filmed a child who still had a good relationship with the abuser, which is I thought it was interesting to be sure to put that into the film. An interesting take, or an interesting thing that should be in there, I guess.
Yeah, because these aren't a lot of films. A lot of bad films are just have like one enemy, and you don't really get to know them ever. They don't really do character development on the person who's supposedly the bad actor in the story, and develop them a little bit and show the nuance and intricacies of all the dynamics. And that's really interesting. They did put that in because he doesn't hate his child or abuse the child. He abuses the wife in that case. And she has to deal with that all on her own because no one sees it from the outside.
And it's so often hidden from the children anyway. And so many abusers, like emotional abusers, so damaged anyway that it doesn't always translate into abusing everyone. Like every abuser has people that like them that haven't been abused by them. Anyway, interesting dynamic, and I think that was her question at the
which I guess in the case of the film Debutante, there's a boyfriend and girlfriend relationship, and we only see in the audience the main character Meg going through the elders meeting, the judicial committee, and people ask like, well, what would the boyfriend, how would he be questioned? And I guess you've both been through that in your lives as the man. What's interesting in that film is that in the film they say that, well, we haven't talked to him yet, or we haven't made a decision about him yet. They might have already met with him, but there's this really interesting question they ask the woman Meg. They ask her who initiated, and this is one of the questions they have to ask from their elders book. Like the elders don't have any secret knowledge. They just have a book they have to follow, and they have a role they have to play. And in this role play, they're asking who started the actions that led to sex in this case. She says, I can't answer that, which is an interesting position to take because both people, like you were saying in your story, Ryan, have done the same sin, apparently, according to their laws and rules.
Well, I mean, yeah, the idea that like one person is somehow the instigator in a mutually agreed upon situation is in itself kind of starting from an unrealistic premise. And the fact is that it's not as if one person says, hey, we should do this all the time. I mean, I'm sure there are scenarios where that is true, but to start from the idea that one person is you're trying to establish one person as being more guilty than another, which is, to me, that's not how any relationship really works. If you can.
And I remember the question being specifically like if he would have been treated differently.
Mm-hmm.
I would say in some ways, yes, but as far as questioning, probably not. But the power dynamic is different. Maybe more than male and female in that it would depend. You were treated different. I knew people were treated different just because like their dad was an elder or something like, but I think less in the elders room would they have been treated different. I mean, there's still probably plenty of ways they could be in the elders room, but definitely outside of it, like in the aftermath, if people knew whatever, for some reason there was more stigma around females, women, girls who did that than like dudes who came back after. It's like, oh yeah, we are expected to have done that, just like say sorry or do your time and then you're whatever.
Well, like we're like three guys talking about this. The simple fact is that three guys talking about it is part of the problem, because in a judicial arrangement, the representative perspective of any female who has ever been in any of the situation is missing 100%.
Absolutely.
There's absolutely, I don't care how you want to argue that the Holy Spirit, blah, 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 about the situation. The fact is that 3 dudes from the middle of fucking nowhere in Minnesota who all have their own opinions about women and about men, and who probably all did similar things when they were teenagers and have their own guilt and their own feelings that they're bringing into the situation. Those 3 guys are going to sit in a room and they're going to decide about the emotional nuances and the feelings and the motivations and the repentance level of a young woman. Right. Sure.
That's
Right. Like you have any fucking clue about that.
I think that's it. I think you nailed it. Like, and I think it did get covered a little bit in the Q&A during that question. I think it came eventually around to that they can't be treated the same. There's never a woman in there. While they might be asked the same questions, it's never going to be the same dynamic because there's no level playing field. Yeah.
There's no empathy.
Yeah.
There's no ability to empathize with the person you're talking to. You can ask the exact same questions. And if a young man answers it a certain way, and you previously were a young man, you say, yeah, I know how he's feeling. Yeah, I was there. Okay. A young woman, you're like, oh, the Jezebel, right? Like, I mean, there is no opportunity for equal justice in that scenario.
The men could have outed her or said like, oh, well, she instigated it. And she said she denied the question in that particular example in the film.
There are many cases in which the witness situation of alleged justice fails, child sexual abuse being one of them, people's marital situations being another. But honestly, the idea that no female perspective is ever present in any of these tribunals is complete bullshit.
That and what you brought up before, like calling her a Jezebel or any woman, that there's just a different standard that women are held to. Like if you sleep with 2 men in your life in this culture, you're forever tainted. You know, if you sleep with 1, you're tainted and for the rest of your life, kind of thing. If you don't marry that person or aren't married. Or for a man, it's like, whatever. It's fine. You could have fooled around with tens of women in that culture and probably still come back and be an elder. But the woman will always be tainted.
We could go back.
Yeah.
We could go back in 1 year. I could go back and like have a witness wife.
Right. Heard the numbers are really good. Like there's a lot more women than men too. So it's perfect. We should actually consider
this. Right. Let's just go. Not doing that. But like literally they would let us back in. If you say the right things, whatever, and there would be almost no stigma. A woman my age walking back in after doing the things I did, not mentioning any of them here, just would not be they could not expect the same experience.
I can 100% back that up. I will explicitly share 2 examples. My mother was disfellowshipped after she committed adultery with her second husband by marrying him and having a child. And
which is by every other society standards, like you're doing the right thing over here.
Yeah, no, I know. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. I want to make that very clear. She attended meetings for years, wrote letters to the elders, petitioned for reinstatement. She was told, we don't need another Vashti in the congregation. She was denied repeatedly. Another gentleman I know, who I won't name, went to prison for molesting children. Served, I believe, 3 to 5 years. Came out, reinstated in the congregation within 6 months. Babysitting people's kids, including my own son. So my mother falls in love with somebody, winds up divorced, remarries, has a kid, begs to come back. She is not allowed. Child sexual abuse guy gets out of prison, says, I'm sorry, back in the congregation. Same congregation. These are the same elders. Tell me
Saying-
that that's consistent.
You were saying on a previous podcast episode that you had a conversation with one of your parents. Like, you'd sooner have a child molester in your house than your own son.
It's accurate. I mean,
Yeah.
we all know who the guy is.
Right.
And when I look at that, I just think there is a 0% chance that this is a justice system, right? Like, there's no way in the world that the same body of elders directed by the same supernatural influence are able to reject a penitent woman and accept a child molester within the same 12-month period. It doesn't, I mean, I don't know how anybody can look at that and go, oh, well, yeah, there must be a God involved there, right? Like, clearly human beings are making their decisions based on their feelings and their prejudices towards women or towards whatever. I don't know. I can't comprehend it. This is the kind of thing that makes me feel like if I hadn't discovered they weren't the truth through science, I would have eventually had to have figured it out via morality, because it's just insane.
The great question that came up was, is this situation presented in Debutante, is the situation still happening in the present day?
I believe it is, but I don't know. I'm not a witness.
Absolutely.
And
Yeah,
you're-
I mean,
you're-
I'm not that far removed, I guess, but I mean, there's no way it changed in that amount of time. I don't follow their specifics that closely, but
from everything I know, this is exactly what's still happening.
I mean, I'm sure it's been a little different, via Zoom or whatever, but
How
April
do they
1st,
do
we're back.
judicial committees via Zoom. What?
And
I don't know. I mean, but I assume like they haven't had a meeting in person in 2 years.
apparently they have to go back. I saw some headline
Yeah,
this
April
morning.
1st.
April 1st, they all have to go
I
back.
saw,
to Town
yeah, I
Hall.
saw it yesterday.
It's like the vacation's over, folks.
My kids were like, "Oh yeah, we heard." Yeah,
Wait, they set it for April Fool's Day?
yeah. No, that's a good point.
I hope no one shows up because of that.
It turns out
I'm
Lloyd
thinking a lot of
Evans-
people
Lloyd
were
Evans
like, you know
sent
what?
out
I
that
got really
press
used
release.
to not going, just like turning it on and leaving it in the corner while I watch whatever football.
If you were smart, you'd have done like a screen capture of any Zoom call, because they had to like dress up in their meeting clothes and keep the camera on, or they got in trouble. And like they had to show up. Like my aunt was living with my parents for a while. She went through like a little family thing and was staying there, and she was writing to me. She's like, your parents, it's so ridiculous. Like they get all dressed up in their church clothes and then they sit at the table for an hour and a half or 2 hours and like pay attention, like look at the camera the whole time. Like, what, really? And like, do they sing songs? Like, what's happening? It sounds like so weird. Like they're being controlled by like an internet guru, and they
Do they
what is going
wear
on?
do they wear witness pants, or do they at least stay in their pajamas?
There's whitey tighties at the bottom.
I would be like wearing flannel PJs with like a suit top. That's
Yeah.
what I'd be doing. I might be doing that right now. You don't know.
Can't imagine.
And they
Wow.
like they get like chastised. Like people chat like during the thing, apparently, like why is your camera off? But if it was me, I would have like Zoom
So
video.
I'm eating Chinese food, trying to fuck right now.
Just like you just sit in one meeting.
What's it to you? Fucking Weederholt.
Stop creeping on my life.
Yeah.
I love how you're living in my head, Mitchell. That was the first thing. Fucking and Chinese food. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like, what?
What else is there?
Yeah, well, fucking product of God, created in His image. We can't all rapid fuck, so we get Chinese food instead.
Please edit this.
Reference that later.
Put a little like 10-second.
I didn't. No
Run
one
the jewels
mentioned
thing
it.
is,
No one told me if there were rules. How many times I could say fuck? If I could reference "Run the Jewels."
I'll put a counter at the bottom, like in that one South Park episode. It's like 17th time you said fuck.
Yeah.
You can reference Run the Jewels as much as you want, Mitchell, as far as I'm
All
concerned.
right. So, quick question:
I know where you're going.
would you punch a baby bear in his shit or not? I'm gonna say don't do it, but only LP is allowed to punch a baby bear in his shit.
I strongly believe we have,
some
we
show
have
and tell
lost
here.
control of this
Mitchell, maybe you can
podcast.
represent what this
Completely,
is since
it's
we're on the topic.
completely gone off rails.
We have
okay.
gone very far off the rails.
I have a 4 record set of Run the Jewels
RTJ.
and this
Deluxe.
is from Mitchell, deluxe edition with instrumental record versions. Oh, they're so sexy. You got to see these records.
They're beautiful.
Pink,
Oh,
which
that's
is
so
pretty
pretty.
sick, right? And
You know,
then go ahead.
The LP vinyl collection, like they sent out the email like last week.
Look at this. Like,
Oh,
So it's a deluxe. So
shimmer.
the pink disc or the normal album, and then the yellow ones are the instrumentals, and there's a couple bonus tracks, I think.
that is sexy as shit, Scott.
Right? I know. Thank you, Mitchell. For the
You're
gift.
welcome.
And this is not just any anniversary set. This is from a Madison DJ. And am I wrong or am I right? This is the DJ of RTJ.
No,
No, okay.
You're
DJ
not right.
from Madison.
He
Okay.
knows Gabe. Gabe's the RTJ's touring DJ, but no, it's not. It wasn't from him.
Oh, okay.
I think he just bought it. He needed to liquidate some of his collection to get his car fixed, and I just traded him straight across. I actually got like 30 records. like that one was one of the less obscure ones, like a lot of really great hip-hop vinyl for Big Sense Car. Cool dude.
If I could get vinyl, I would do almost anything under a bridge. God.
We got that. We already had. We already knew where you were going with it.
The most recent vinyl I acquired was the new Little Sims album. Sometimes it might be Introvert. I don't know.
The local rapper from Minneapolis, Sims.
No, Little Sims. She's
Little
from
Sims.
UK. She's from
okay.
UK. She is a rapper, but you would appreciate, you would enjoy. Check out Little Sims.
This is one of my favorite that I got in that collection.
Oh,
Let's
nice.
Get Free.
Nice.
That title.
That
cover is
Prez, one of my
amazing.
favorite albums of all time.
I'm a big
good.
fan of the UK hip hop and rap scene. I'm less so of the American, although I mean I have my faves, but Little Sims, Young Fathers, highly recommend. Just saying, that's the most recent record I bought. It doesn't, apropos of nothing. I really want to buy the El Producto combo platter vinyl thing that the RTJ folks emailed out last week. I was like, oh my God, I want to buy this. I want to buy this. I haven't bought it yet.
But back to the film Debutante.
Yes. There's a movie we're talking about.
I guess.
Do I dare ask if there are any festivals coming up again that are going to show this film?
She's in a festival next week. Underwire Festival is the one that's on right now in the UK that Debutante is a part of. So it's getting some more press and some more screening in some place. So it's only played at Irish festivals until here in the UK. This is the one that's on right now is their US and international premiere is what we got to represent. So it's now in the UK premiere, I believe.
Very cool. Very
cool. She did a podcast today. Let's talk about sex.
Does she have any additional films in development or consideration or anything like that?
I think this is her main calling card film at the moment. I hope she has something. But one thing her and I both talked about is that directing and producing is a mistake. And she did so many things and took on so many roles, as did I for my film Witness Underground, that it's like such a burnout. Like one role on any project you can burn out, and like we were doing multiple roles that are really key top level roles. Mm-hmm. So I think she was happy to she would have loved to have been in Chicago and loves doing and representing her film, but also nice to have crew step up and say, hey, we're here to help out. Absolutely. I mean, if it was screened in Chicago, I would have been there anyways if she was representing it. It's the time of my life to go to a film festival. It's my new favorite hobby.
Mine too. I never really thought about it before.
I don't blame you.
Until recently, this year.
Yeah.
Never sought it out that much, but that was amazing.
The three of us got to hit a film festival because,
Yeah,
frankly,
let's do
it
it.
is pretty great. It is pretty